जय हिंद दोस्तों। वेलकम टू आवर चैनल पाइपर टूना। मेरा नाम है, नाम जान के क्या ही करना, सीधे काम की बात करते हैं। तो धरती की इस पावन भूमि पे 15 अगस्त से पावन पुण्यतिथि और कुछ हो नहीं सकती, तो इससे अच्छा अवसर हमें मिल नहीं सकता। तो आज से हम शुरू करने जा रहे हैं हमारी लाइव एक्सप्रेस। इस लाइव एक्सप्रेस को पकड़ने के लिए आइए मेरे साथ मेरे सफ़र पे। हम लोग इंडियन एक्सप्रेस की लाइव रीडिंग करेंगे। जी हाँ, बिल्कुल लाइव रीडिंग, कोई एनालिसिस नहीं, बस इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स की लाइव रीडिंग। आप दुनिया के किसी कोने में हो, आप तक अपडेटेड न्यूज़पेपर पहुंचती हो या ना हो, बट ये लाइव एक्सप्रेस आप तक ज़रूर पहुंचेगी हर रोज़। किसी भी सीरियस यूपीएससी सिविल सर्विसेज के एक्सपेरेंट से न्यूज़पेपर रीडिंग की इम्पोर्टेंस पूछना, ये तो व्यर्थ होगा। इसकी महत्व आपको पता ही है। तो बिना किसी देरी किए चलिए आज की पावन तिथि से शुरू करते हैं। ग्रीटिंग्स टू ऑल फेलो सिटीजन्स ऑन 77th इंडिपेंडेंस डे। लेट्स स्टार्ट दिस अमृत काल। जो टॉपिक आज हम कवर करेंगे पहले उसे देखते हैं। सबसे पहला है पेज नंबर 5 पे, फिर भी हम कवर करेंगे पेज 14, 25, 26, 29 एंड 31। आप ये देख सकते हैं, ये टॉपिक हम कवर करने जा रहे हैं। इनमें से कुछ टॉपिक होंगे जो एडिटोरियल के होंगे, तो वो हम अलग से वीडियो में कवर करेंगे। तो पेज नंबर 25 पे जो हम कवर करने जा रहे हैं टॉपिक हमारा, पाक स्वेयर्स इन बलूचिस्तान एक्स सेनेटर एज केयर टेकर पीएम। देख लें, द वर्ल्ड की बात हो रही है, आसपास की खबरें होना ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है हमें। फॉर्मर पाकिस्तान सेनेटर अनवर उल हक Kakkar was sworn in on Monday as the country's prime minister to head a caretaker national government that will oversee parliamentary elections amid one of the worst economic crises the Islamic nation has faced, officials said. Kakkar, who is comparatively new to politics and known to be close to the powerful military, has been representing his Balochistan province in the Senate since 2018. President Arif Alvi administered the oath of office to him inside a white marble place known as the Presidency in a brief ceremony. Kakkar on Sunday quit as the head of his small Balochistan Awami Party and quit as a senator after being named by outgoing Premier Shehbaz Sharif and opposition leader Raza Riaz to oversee the vote and run the day-to-day affairs of the government until a new government is elected. It is normal practice in Pakistan to appoint a caretaker administration for the election period. Under the constitution, the elections should take place in the next 90 days. In his overnight farewell address to the nation, Sharif asked his countrymen to make the right decision when they go to vote. He blamed Khan for the economic crisis the country was facing when he came to power. A day earlier, the PM designate announced his resignation from the Senate as well as the Balochistan Awami Party (BAP), right, which he founded in 2018. According to Geo News, Kakkar stepped down from his post because he wanted to be an impartial interim premier. Since it was his responsibility to hold free and fair general elections in cooperation with the Election Commission of Pakistan, he had decided to resign. A notification issued by Senate Secretariat on Monday notified Kakkar's resignation. Right. Now we will go to page number 26. There is nothing on page 25. On page 26, we have to cover why doctors are protesting rule to prescribe generic drugs. I think there is issue on generic drugs, right? So why doctors are protesting rules to prescribe generic drugs? After the National Medical Commission notified new guidelines on professional conduct recently, doctors have been protesting one of the stipulations, using generic names of medicine on the prescription instead of a particular brand name. The Indian Medical Association, the largest body of doctors in the country, said in a statement this was akin to running trains without tracks. They said before implementing any policy to meaningfully promote generic medicines, the quality of drugs across manufacturers has to be ensured. So, what do the guidelines say? The guidelines say that doctors can only write generic names of the medicine on the prescription. For example, कि अगर कोई डॉक्टर हैं, doctor will have to prescribe paracetamol for fever instead of dolo or calpol. Every RMP should prescribe drugs using generic names written legibly. The guidelines says this practice can only be relaxed for medicines with narrow the therapeutic index, drugs where a small difference in dosage may lead to adverse outcomes. Biosimilars, a different version of biologic product that are manufactured in living systems, and similar other exceptional cases. The guidelines says that generic medicine on average are 30% to 80% cheaper than the branded versions and are hence likely to bring down healthcare cost. What does it mean for you? The new guidelines do not allow doctors to write a specific brand, which means that you will get whichever medicine with the relevant active ingredient your pharmacist stocks. If a pharmacy does not have a generic version of a medicine, which drugstore usually do not stock because of very low profit margins, the responsibility to substitute it with a branded medicine will shift to the pharmacist instead of the doctor. This will promote brands that have good profit margins irrespective of how good they are, said Dr. Arun Gupta, President of Delhi Medical Council. Additionally, doctors say it will also take away their choice of prescribing the medicine they think is best for a patient. Taken in the context of the quality of generics varying across companies, this could result in ineffective treatment. What are doctors saying? The main reason for doctors protesting the guidelines is the quality of generic medicine, they say. The biggest impediment to generic drugs is the uncertainty about its quality. The quality control in the nation being very weak, there is practically no guarantee of the quality of drugs, and prescribing drugs without assured quality would be determined to patient health. IMA, Indian Medical Association, said in its statement. Dr. Sharad Agrawal, IMA president, said, what happens if a person takes a generic medicine prescribed by me and does not get better, then buys a branded version from the pharmacy and does? It hampers my reputation. What about hospitalized patients? I give them generics and they do not get better. Later, the family would say they could have paid for any medicine. Why did I not use it? This will lead to violence. He also said that the guidelines were notified without consultation with the stakeholders. IMA demands deferring of this regulation for wider consultations by the Government of India. The statement from the doctors' body says. What are the issues with generic medicines? Doctors, drug manufacturers, and the government all agree that there is much to be done when it comes to the quality of the generic medicine in the country. While the doctors in the IMA statement said that only 0.1% medicines are tested for quality checks, manufacturers said it is not possible for the government to test every batch. But following good manufacturing practices to the T can assure quality by design. Many have also questioned the tests that a company needs to do to get approval. Until a few years ago, it was not mandatory for companies making generics to carry out bioequivalence or stability studies. Bioequivalence studies are done to show that the generic drugs elicits the same response as a branded version. Stability studies are done to see how the quality of the drugs varies over a period under specific environmental condition. Experts from the pharmaceutical sector admit that there are drugs still in the market that never underwent these studies. Data from the Union Health Ministry shows that around 3% of all medicines tested over the last 3 years, including generics, branded generics, and branded medicines, were found to be not of standard quality. Right? It's then we will see our another topic. Whoa. Wildfires in Hawaii kill 96. What is happening and why? Let's start with this. Unprecedented wildfires have devastated the US state of Hawaii in the past week, killing 96 people as of Monday. Hawaii's governor, Josh Green, has warned that scores more could be dead. This is believed to be the worst case of a wildfire in the United States in 100 years, with power lines, buildings, and cars going up in flames. Green said in a press conference that the historic town of Lahaina has suffered near total damage. He told the Associated Press, "Without a doubt, it feels like a bomb was dropped on Lahaina. The fires are now being contained." What is actually happening there? Hawaii is an archipelago in the Pacific Ocean, right? The fires have particularly affected Mausi Island, located 167 km from the capital city of Honolulu. It is very important from prelims point of view. Capital of Hawaii, Honolulu. Mausi Island is located near Hawaii. The state is no stranger to wildfires, especially in the drier parts of the island. However, the current fires, believed to have started on August 8, are particularly ferocious. Their exact cause is still under investigation, but experts agree that the fires were bolstered by strong winds from Hurricane Dora. Dora is not the Dora the Explorer, it's Hurricane Dora, which was passing through the Pacific Ocean. Low humidity and dry vegetation also had a role to play. Initial reports suggest that the changing land use patterns in Hawaii, which has seen farm and forest lands being replaced by flammable non native species of grasses like Guinea grass, are a likely cause for the easy spread of the fire. What is the impact on environment? Wildfires are a critical part of the ecosystem. A healthy fire is key to ensuring that forests remain robust and resilient. It also aids the natural replenishment of nutrients in the soil, helps sunlight reach the forest floors, and encourages the germination of seeds. But it is the increasingly intense nature of the wildfires, aided by dry conditions, change in rain cycles, and warming weather, that is becoming a source of worry. July 2023, for instance, saw the highest temperature on record across the planet, and evidence suggests that the record will be broken sooner than later. In the past month, firefighters in Algeria, Tunisia, Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Canada, among others, have been battling blazes with varying degree of success. The northern hemisphere has seen significant wildfire activity since the beginning of May this year, with widespread record-breaking fires in Canada and large fires across eastern Russia. European Union's Copernicus program, which monitors atmospheric conditions on Earth, said it in a statement on August 3rd. Besides the destruction of lives and livelihoods, these catastrophic wildfires also release an immense amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Climate change aids wildfires, which in turn releases the carbon stored in trees as CO2 and methane, resulting in a vicious cycle. There is also one immediate issue. These immense fires add to air pollution, leading to respiratory issues, heart diseases, and lung cancer. Firefighter on Mausi Island, Hawaii. Geographically, it's a very important island that can be asked in the prelims. Now we will see on page 29. What's there? 28. 29. After Moon, ISRO turns to Sun. India's first solar mission looks at September launch date. Let's look at this article. After two successful mission launches in July, including the Chandrayaan 3, the Indian Space Research Organization is getting ready for its next big mission though, to the Sun. According to sources, Aditya L1, India's first mission to the moon, is expected to be launched in early September this year, right? What is the name of the mission? Aditya L1, right? Aditya L1, the first space based Indian observatory to study the sun, is getting ready for the launch. The satellite realized at the UR Raw Satellite Center URSC, Bengaluru, has arrived at SDSC SHAR Sriharikota, Satish Dhawan Space Center. ISRO tweeted on Monday. Just like the ongoing Chandrayaan 3 mission, the satellite will go around the Earth, gathering speed, and then slingshot towards the Sun. It will then cruise the 1.5 million kilometers in around 4 months, and then it will be inserted into a halo shaped orbit around the L1 point. These terms are quite important for prelims. Halo shaped orbit around the L1 point. The solar mission will not see the spacecraft actually go to the sun, it will instead create a space observatory at a point from which the sun can be observed even during an eclipse. To get this unobstructed, continuous view of sun, the satellite will travel to L1 or Lagrange point between the sun and the earth. Lagrange point क्या होते हैं? There are 5 between any two celestial objects are referred to as parking spots in a space because gravitational pull of celestial objects equals force required to keep it in the orbit. Even after traveling the 1.5 million kilometers, we would have covered only 10% of the distance to the sun. This will allow the main payload VLEC to look directly into the source of coronal mass ejection. Once at L1, it will be the best instrument observing the solar corona, although there are observatories studying the solar corona even on ground, but the weather conditions and atmospheric interference does not allow it to see this as clearly, said Professor Dipankar Banerjee, Director of Aryabhat Research Institute of Observational Sciences, ARIES. We have our observational science, right? ARIES, which will host the support cell for the Aditya L1 mission. Support cell for Aditya L1 mission is ARIES. He said the closest a man-made object has gone to the sun is the Parker probe from NASA. However, the objectives of the mission were very different. Since it is closer to the sun, it cannot directly look at the sun. Parker is actually turned away from the sun and observes the particles in the solar wave in that position. Aditya L1 aims to study the solar corona. Are you getting the difference? Solar emissions, solar winds and flares, coronal mass ejections, besides carrying out imaging of the sun round the clock, ISRO said. After AstroSat, this is ISRO's second astronomy mission observatory done in collaboration with scientific and research institutes. The main collaborators in the solar mission with 7 payloads are Physical Research Laboratory Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Astrophysics IIA, Bengaluru, Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics IUCAA, Pune, and the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research IISER, Kolkata. In January, IIA handed over visible line emission coronagraph VELC. These terms can be asked in your prelims, right, to ISRO, which will track CME, trace links between CME plasma and the magnetic field that drives solar eruption and solar winds. In June, IUCAA completed and handed over the Solar Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope SUIT, Solar Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope suite, which will provide full disk image of the sun in the 2000 to 4000 ampere wavelength. Angstrom wavelength range. Observe the solar atmosphere slicing via different layers. These will help put together process inside the solar surface. Both VLC and SUIT are unique instruments built for the mission to the sun. Then we will go to page number 31. Here we will see the topic. India's merchandise export dropped to 9-month low of $32.25 billion in July. Let's see what this topic is about. India's merchandise exports declined for the sixth consecutive months to a 9-month low of $32.25 billion in July, marking a decline of 15.9% year-on-year amid weak external demand, especially slowing consumption demand in some developed economies. Data released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry on Monday showed. The decline came amid a steeper fall in imports, which fell 17% year-on-year to $52.92 billion. This led to a narrowing of the trade deficit to $20.67 billion against $25.43 billion in July 2022. It's the comparison being done. Officials said a major part of the decline in exports has been on account of a decline in global crude price, due to which petroleum products export recorded a decline in value terms and not in value terms. Commerce Secretary Sunil Bhartwal said the decline in exports have come amid global headwinds and some other countries reporting an even sharper decline in exports. Globally, the headwinds that we had thought would improve have continued to exist. Most countries are reporting negative import and export growth. We too are a part of that global value chain, and if I look at it from that perspective, the fall in our exports is not as high as elsewhere, he said. However, he expressed hope that India's export of goods and services during 23-24 would be higher than that of the previous financial year of $776 billion. We are hopeful and sure that our exports will be higher than last year's export, both goods as well as services, he said, adding India's trade performance, after witnessing very high growth in 22-23, has continued to show declining trends in July compared to high base of last year in the backdrop of a global slowdown. So these were the topics. Now we will see the topic on the very first page, page number 5. Vegetable price spike pushes July retail inflation up to 7.44%. India's retail inflation rate surged to a 15-month high of 7.44% in July 23, primarily driven by rise in price of vegetables, cereals, pulses, spices, and milk products. Data released by NSO, right, on Monday showed. The inflation print had last breached the 7% mark in September 2022, and the previous high for the headline retail inflation rate was recorded at 7.79% in April 2022. This is the third instance of retail inflation rate crossing the upper limit of 4 plus minus 2% band of Reserve Bank of India's medium-term inflation target, right? Here we can see, rest is on page number 9, we will go to that. But before that, we need to see deficient rainfall in August so far is likely to put pressure on vegetable prices, and an immediate reversal in prices may not be possible until next harvest. The price rise may still not warrant a rate hike by RBI. A pause is likely. On page number 9, we will see the rest topic as here. In this calendar year and 7th instance since July 2022. As I already told you, there are too much data in this. The RBI mainly factors in the retail inflation while deciding the benchmark interest rate, that is the repo rate. Food prices, especially of vegetables and cereals, pushed up prices at the wholesale level also, with the wholesale price index based inflation rising to minus 1.36% in July from minus 4.12% in June, even though on a year on year basis it continued to remain in the deflationary zone for the fourth consecutive month, separately released data by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry on Monday showed. The sharp increase in inflation has come amid the RBI keeping the key repo rate unchanged at 6.05% in its latest monetary policy review last week. While the six-member MPC led by RBI Governor Shaktikant Das retained the policy stance as withdrawal of accommodation, it hiked the inflation projection from 5.1% to 5.4% for the fiscal year 24, in wake of high food inflation, signaling that a rate cut is unlikely in the near future. As per the RBI projection, inflation is expected to remain above 5% till the first quarter of 24-25 and is likely to hit the 6.2% level in the ongoing quarter, July-September. Consumer Price Index CPI recorded an inflation rate of 11.51% in July as against 4.55% a month ago and 6.69% a year ago. Food and beverages, which accounts for 45.86% of the overall Consumer Price Index CPI, recorded an inflation rate of 10.57% in July as against 4.63% in June. The inflation rate for cereals and products, weight of 9.67%, increased to 13.04% year on year in July from 12.7% in June, while that for vegetables, jinka weight has 6.0% in the CPI, jumped to 37.34% in July from 0.93% in the June. The retail inflation rate in July was 13.27% in case of pulses and products, 8.34% for milk and products, 13.04% for cereals and products, 21.63% for spices, 5.51% for prepared meals, snacks, sweets, etc., and minus 16.87% for oils and fats. Retail inflation in the fuel and light category was lower at 3.67% in July from 3.92% in the previous month, while that for housing eased to 4.47% from 4.56%. Core inflation, the non-food, non-fuel, eased to 21-month low of 5.1% in July 2023. As per estimate by ICRA, the overall retail inflation rate in July was higher at 7.63% in rural areas than 7.20% in urban areas. Even though food inflation for rural areas was at 11.04%, lower than 1.32% in urban areas, of the 22 states or UTs for which the data is available, a dozen states recorded higher than average retail inflation rate in July. With the highest inflation rate seen in Rajasthan, 9 highest inflation rate has been seen in Rajasthan, 9.66%, followed by Jharkhand, 9.16% inflation rate, then Tamil Nadu 8.95% and Odisha and Uttarakhand. At the wholesale level, the food index recorded a 7.75% inflation rate led mainly by a 62.12% spike in vegetable prices. Fuel and power basket inflation moderated to minus 12.79% in July from minus 12.63% in June. In manufactured products, the inflation rate was minus 2.5% as against minus 2.7% in June. Experts said inflation rate is expected to stay above the 6% mark in the coming months and may prompt up an upward revision in the 6.2% projection by the RBI for the second quarter. Given the CPI inflation print for July 2023, the MPC revised forecast for inflation for quarter 2 fiscal year 24 of 6.2% appears to be at risk of being overshot, as the vegetable price shock may not reverse adequately before the next harvest. Moreover, rainfall has been deficient in August so far, which is likely to put upward pressure on food prices amid the lags in Kharif sowing across some crops. The MPC's latest forecast suggests inflation will remain above 5% through quarter 1 fiscal year 25, based on which we have pushed out a forecast for the earliest cut to quarter 2 fiscal year 25. In our view, inflation would need to persist above 6% for at least 2 quarters. Amid transmission of pressure to core inflation to set stage for a rate hike, Aditya Nair, chief economist, head research and outreach ICRS, said. So these were the topics for today. I think that's enough. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great study, guys. Study hard. Have some faith on yourself. And never miss the Indian Express reading with me in my live express.